everyone, this is Avani from Hedgecraft Heirlooms, and this week I am coming to you for my live mini class to talk about new moon magic, because guess what? Tonight is indeed a new moon, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about how you can work with the energy of this moon phase. I feel like, historically speaking, based on my experience in the community over the past, like 10, 15 years, I feel like most people tend to focus on the full moon and not so much the new moon, but I think that the new moon has a wonderful energy to it that I think that a lot of people could really benefit from. So that's what that's dedicated to today, so you can learn how to work with it for yourselves. If you're here watching, of course, if you want to throw a hashtag live into the comments or hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay after the fact. So let's get down to it. Usually I do a little bit of a pre-show, but I have a lot of material to cover today, so I figured that we would just get right into it, and as folks get here, they get here. Actually, though, real quick, before I do that, I am going to open up the second tab here, because I totally didn't do that yet, so I can see all of your comments. So just hang in there with me. Totally found this cute little filter. If you're watching on Instagram, there's lots of filters for videos. This really cute filter that I'm using today. I'm really excited that I found that. It was a really easy thing to track down too. It was like the first moon thing that I found, and it was just chef's kiss perfect. Come on, honey. We're gonna have a pre-show, but alright, so let's get down to it. Again, if you're watching, hashtag live, hashtag replay. So let's talk about new moon magic, because that's what everybody came here for today, or is coming for. So the new moon, hey Tabitha, we're going to be talking about new moon magic today, so thanks for joining. You got here just in time for me to get started. So the new moon throughout history has been used as a starting point. Now, so before we had the calendar that we all use today, January, February, March, April, May, etc., 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 people used the moons or the lunar month to mark the passage of time, and the new moon was widely considered to be the start of every new lunar month. And the word month, interestingly, as you might imagine if you've ever thought about it or paid attention, the word moon shares its etymology or origin with the word for moon. They have a very similar appearance, at least, even if it's not the same sound. And it comes from a Proto-Indo-European, so that means it's really far back, root word meh, or which means to measure. So basically since time immemorial, the moon has been being used to mark the passage of time, and even evidenced by the name that we use to refer to it, which is neat. In ancient Israel, among Christians, like talking about ancient Christianity, not so much modern Christianity, especially when we talk about the Old Testament in the Bible, the Israelis and the Christians, they actually marked the new moon of every month with some very specific ceremonies. They did that with lighting signal fires, and they made offerings, which were believed to entice God, so to speak, into blessing the month ahead. Although later in the Bible, in the New Testament, God actually condemns that practice, basically saying that they've taken it and trivialized it and turned it into just an excuse to, party, and says, I don't want you doing that anymore. But at some point, it actually was a really popular practice for Christians who observe the new moon. And there is some, because when I was doing this research, there is some discussion on the internet about whether or not Christians should still be doing it, or Jews should still be marking the new moon. So I guess it depends on the specific religion or group or belief of the people that in question. But it is still kind of a thing out there, but it's certainly not popular. In ancient Greece, the days preceding the new moon, often referred to as the dark moon, at least that's how I refer to it. So the dark moon means when the moon is completely dark, as opposed to the new moon, where you get just that little teeny tiny sliver of a moon that's just starting to show. So dark moon, new moon, teeny tiny sliver. So in the days preceding the new moon, the dark moon, they were considered to be, in ancient Greece, sacred to Hecate, who was a goddess of witchcraft and crossroads and midwifery and lots of different things, and death. So she's a fascinating figure. I actually did a video about her last fall, so I don't know if it's on my IGTV channel, but it's certainly on my YouTube channel. So you're welcome to go into the link tree in my bio, and you can find the YouTube, and you can go watch the entire video that I did about Hecate. And then I talked about her also in one of my very, very first videos I did about moon goddesses. But the video that's specifically for Hecate obviously is a little bit more in depth. Hey, Likely Tell Witch, we're here talking about new moon magic. I was just talking about how the dark moon, which is the days leading up to the new moon, were sacred to Hecate. And the common practice that is done at that dark moon, which is also called and I'm probably going to butcher it because I've only ever read this word, so if you know how it's pronounced and I say it wrong, I would love to be corrected. Deipnon or Deipnon, it's spelled like Deipnon or something like that. But usually what is performed by modern Hecatean witches is that they will make offerings at a crossroad, usually specific foods or particular items, and the timing is very important. I knew it once. It's supposed to be within 12 hours of the actual astrological new moon or dark moon, if I'm not mistaken. So what day it's on will vary. As opposed to in modern kind of Wicca and witchcraft, they kind of give you a little more leeway where you can do the day before to the day after. But the Hecatean associations narrow it down even more if you choose to follow that. And one of the rules about making those offerings at a crossroads that you should never look back after you place it there. And the new moon, so the dark moon was associated with Hecate, but the new moon was associated with Apollo, which, if you're not familiar with some reason, is a Grecian sun god, interestingly. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, in the terms of more modern astronomy, only because, the moon is only white and bright the way it is because it's reflecting the sun. So it kind of makes a little bit of sense that it worked out that way. And in ancient Sumeria, Lilith was associated with the new moon, and if for some reason, if you're not familiar with Lilith, and I'm not an expert on this, I know more about Hecate than I do about Lilith, so again, if I'm incorrect, please correct me. Lilith was considered to be the first wife of Adam before Eve, who, and again, I'm not sure what the source of the mythology of Lilith comes from, because it's definitely not in the Old Testament as we know it today, but in any case, she basically refused to lay underneath Adam, or lay with Adam. I'm not sure how the phrasing is in the stories, but ultimately she became this cursed woman, and she was exiled from the Garden of Eden before Adam, and then God created a new wife who was more suitable for her, and there's a whole thing around it. But Lilith, let's talk about Lilith. Lilith, as a figure in the mythology and the folklore, is often thought of as something of a demonic figure, or in this case in ancient Sumeria, sometimes also in the 1800s in particular, she gained a reputation as being a succubus who's believed to be the most active at new moons, interestingly. But another more positive one is that she was said to visit children in their sleep. So if they were laughing in their sleep, it was believed that it was actually Lilith that was causing that. Children laughing in their sleep during the new moon specifically, it was said to be Lilith visiting them in their sleep, which is kind of fun. So that said, as far as new moon magic as we kind of practice it today in the modern world, the new moon is usually associated with renewal and rebirth, new beginnings, and of course still is considered in a way the start of a new month, or at the very least the start of a new lunar cycle, or a new lunar month. Obviously the world at large still doesn't really use lunar months anymore, but we as witches still kind of tend to work within those cycles to a certain degree, sometimes even without meaning it, but certainly if you're doing it intentionally, it tends to work out that way. They call that confirmation bias in the psychological world, but I digress. So some activities that are commonly performed during the new moon to kind of take advantage of that kind of new energy usually is ritual baths. So things are for purification or cleansing frequently, or new starts. So ritual baths, anointing are big, and also divination is another big thing that is done, sort of as a way to get a little bit of a sneak peek at what's going to be happening in the lunar month or lunar cycle ahead. Another thing that some people do, so a lot of people talk about the idea of moon water and usually think about it as something that you make at the full moon, but you can actually make moon water at any point in the lunar cycle to kind of capture the energy of that particular moon phase. So when you're using it or creating moon water at the new moon, you're making new or dark moon water. And that water is really good to use in spells and rituals for releasing new beginnings, personal growth, purification, cleansing, and rebirth. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier the idea of making offerings. That's another really popular thing. It looks like another couple people have joined us. Again, if you're watching, if you go throw a hashtag live into the comments, hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay, especially if you're on Facebook, because Facebook will not show me your names, it just gives me a number, and I would love to say hello. So making offerings was really popular, especially historically speaking, especially in ancient Greece. But some of the offerings that people commonly make is food, of course. Another thing are sweepings. So again, getting back into the theme of cleansing and purification, a lot of the time part of their offering and ritual to Hecate or for the new moon would be to cleanse or clean the home. And they would take the sweepings from the house, as the idea is, getting rid of the old and being, the thing that they're getting rid of and using it as an offering. Like, I release this to make room for wonderful things in my life. Another thing that you can do is you can offer your moon blood if you are a biologically uterus having person, functional uterus having person, I could say. If that's something that you're interested in trying, it's something that I like to do. So, I mean, just some really quick tips if that's something that you're like, I've never done that before, it sounds a little crazy, maybe I'll give it a shot. I recognize that some people have very strong opinions about it, so your mileage may vary, as always. If that's something you want to try, I always recommend collecting it in a relatively wide mouth jar that is on the smaller side. The less air in it, the better. And of course, you don't have to collect an entire cycle worth in order to use it. It can just be a day or two for the new moon. If you're going to be storing it for more than a couple days, it's always a good idea to refrigerate or even freeze it. So obviously if you're freezing, making sure it's in a container that you can get it back out of, kind of important. And, if you're wondering to yourself, okay, well, how do I get it from me to the jar? Obviously, if you're someone who uses disposable products, you can't exactly wring those out. Generally, the people that do things like I do as far as offering blood or moon blood back to the earth, it's usually because we're using menstrual cups or discs, which allow us to collect blood. So that's just a little quick thing. There are some people, too, that will actually create artwork. There is an artist that I follow, The Art of Makenda, on Facebook. I might follow her on Instagram too, but I found her on Facebook first. But she, for a while now, every month has been doing moonblood paintings, which are just amazingly spectacular, and I keep meaning to try it, and I just haven't gotten off my butt yet. I've just been too busy. I always have a good excuse for why I just don't have time for it, or I'm too exhausted, but I digress. That's another thing that some people will do, when paintings are creating of art, whether it's with no matter what media you use, it can also be an offering as well, especially to a deity as like a gift. Be like, I'm creating this artwork for this deity and placing it on an altar, or if it's on some type of paper that can be buried in the earth, that's another way of returning it as well. And then finally, if you are looking at having a new moon ritual and you're trying to decide what goddesses you might want to work with, here are some new moon goddesses for your consideration. Hera, Diana, or Artemis. Hecate, again, more associated with the dark moon rather than the new moon. Juno, who is I don't think I wrote it on here, but I believe she is often conflated with Artemis, if I'm not mistaken, but she's a Roman goddess. Sardar Nuna, who is a Sumerian goddess I had never heard of before doing this research. Persephone, and Selene, who is another moon goddess. So that is what I have today for New Moon Magic. Really quickly, I do have a little live sale for you, and then card reading for anybody who is here, who is interested. So earlier this week, I did a live sale, and anything that was in the sale, I did keep at that sale price for the next 24 hours, and I will do that again. Just a new thing I'm trying. As a quick note, though, as you know, I'm not having a drop this week, but I am having a huge VIP clearance event this weekend, this Saturday and Sunday. If you want to get in on that and you're not already on my VIP list, the only way to get access is to join that today before like 11:45 p.m. or 11:30 p.m. because I think the first email goes out at like 11:45. But to make sure you get in on that, you want to sign up tonight. And a significant amount of my stock is going to be 50% off or more because I need to clear space on my shelves. It's spring is over, summer is very much here, and I would like very much to be able to bring more stuff to you. So feel free to be sure to sign up for that list if you haven't done it yet. I'm going to do a little quick sign off here before I do this little live sale. Hey, Miss Honey Pie, we were doing a little live stream about new Moon Magic. I just wrapped up the educational portion, and I'm going to be doing a little live sale here in just a second, and then we're going to be doing free one-card tarot readings for the first 6 people that claim them. But if you're here watching on YouTube, because I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube later, so I'm going to do a sign off, but if you want to be here for the live sale and the tarot stuff, hang around. I'm not actually hanging up just yet. But if you're here watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad that you were here and listening to this little live mini class about new Moon Magic. Be sure to join us next week where we're going to be talking about the least favorite Sabbath, or learning to love the least favorite Sabbath. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And you can, of course, find out what the least favorite Sabbath is. I can't wait to tell you. It's going to be a fun week, and I'm looking forward to it very, very much. So thanks for coming here. I hope I see you then. Take care, and blessed be. Mwah. Okay. All right.